Was she one of the most beautiful women of ancient Rome, or was she ugly and only got men by being the emperor's wife? How did she sleep with her son to rule Rome? And how did Nero feel about it? Let's find out in today's episode of our series on the most badass women in history. Agrippina the Younger was born in 15 BC and died in 59 AD. She was the daughter of the famous Julia, who was Augustus's sister, and the adopted daughter of the Emperor Tiberius. She was married first to her uncle, the future Emperor Nero, when she was only 14 years old. This marriage resulted in 2 children, a set of twins, and then she became the third wife of her father. The Emperor Tiberius, after divorcing Nero, her father had actually divorced his second wife, the infamous because Messalina had slept with a gladiator, and Tiberius decided that he needed a new wife. So he married Agrippina. Tiberius was almost 70 years old when he married Agrippina, and many people thought this marriage was just an attempt to keep their bloodline going. And this is where things get really gross. According to Cassius Dio, Agrippina demanded that her son, the future Emperor Nero, sleep with her so that he could produce a legitimate heir for the julio-claudian dynasty. The sources tell us that Agrippina came up with the idea of sleeping with her son after reading a book by Roman philosopher Ovid, who wrote about a king who slept with his daughter to ensure the continuation of his bloodline. So Agrippina grabbed this idea from a book and thought, yeah, I can use this one. According to Suetonius, when Agrippina suggested the idea to Nero, Nero refused at first, but then gave in to her wishes. If we look at the letters that were written by the philosopher Pliny the Younger, he tells us that Agrippina never accepted Nero's children with Poppaea Sabina, the woman whom Nero later married, as his heirs. And the reason for this is because, according to Pliny, she wanted her own son to inherit the empire, and she believed that if Nero had children with Poppaea, this would undermine her position. Pliny writes, she was eagerly awaiting the birth of Poppaea's child, not as a grandparent, for she did not even deign to visit her, but she wished to thwart the hopes of her son-in-law, for she feared lest she should bear a son and be considered more deserving of the imperial succession than herself. It looks like Agrippina really hated her own daughter, so Agrippina forced her son, the 12-year-old Nero, to sleep with her for 2 years, and eventually she became pregnant. And according to Suetonius, she was very proud about it, and he writes that she used to laugh about it. When she learned that she was pregnant, she said, I shall now show myself to my advantage, for it is my affair to look to the succession of the julio-claudian. So yeah, she was definitely very proud about sleeping with her son. And Suetonius also tells us that Agrippina believed that her son's manhood was small, and according to him, when she checked it, she said, what a little thing it is, which was actually a common Roman thing to say back then. It didn't have the same meaning as it has today. Suetonius also tells us that Agrippina dressed Nero in women as clothing and taunted him while he was asleep, and that Nero would tell his mother that he wanted to kill her. When Agrippina was around 5 months pregnant, she started having contractions. She sent for the obstetrician and he delivered her baby boy Caligula. But unfortunately, the baby didn't survive for long. He only lived for 2 days. Maybe it was a good thing for him. Can you imagine growing up knowing that your parents did that? Pretty messed up, right? After her son was born, she kept telling him that he wasn't his father's true son, but instead it was her other son, the one that she aborted earlier, who was his twin brother. She told Nero this constantly, and this affected Nero mentally, and it made him grow up resenting his mother. In fact, when Agrippina came up with the idea of marrying his sister, Julia, to the king of Armenia, Nero was the one who opposed this, and he said, you must not think that you can do as you please, and that I will be a party to these things, as I have been to others. When Agrippina was 43 years old, Tiberius died, and Nero inherited the empire. On the day of his inauguration, Nero released his mother and her paramour from their duties at court, and although he didn't openly accuse them of anything, everyone at court knew what they had done. In 58 AD, Nero went to Greece and stayed there for 5 months. He enjoyed his time there, and according to Cassius Dio, he participated in athletic competitions and won prizes. He wrestled, boxed, ran foot races and rode horses, and some accounts say that he whipped a chariot like a horse. Yeah, I guess he was a pretty badass dude, but he was also a bit of a drama queen. In fact, according to Suetonius, he staged an entire battle between Rome and Greece. He gathered soldiers from all over Greece and put them in Greek uniforms, and then attacked the Romans and fought against them. Anyway, when Nero returned to Rome in 57 BC, Agrippina thought that it was a great opportunity for her to get more power. She invited her former lover, Narcissus, and some freedmen to her house. And then she wrote a letter to Nero saying that she needed him to come to her house, because she wanted to give him instructions about his duties as emperor. Nero fell into the trap and went to his mother's house and never left it alive. Narcissus and the freedmen attacked Nero, but he managed to fight them off and kill Narcissus. However, he couldn't save his own mother. He watched as his freedmen cut her body into pieces, and this was his idea, by the way. He didn't want to simply kill her. Instead, he wanted her to suffer. Cassius Dio writes, but she resisted for a long time, both because of the madness of her mind and because of her strong frame of body, for she was unusually tall and muscular, and because she made no efforts to save herself. Finally, however, when they had torn her dress and the attendants had gone away, Nero ordered her to be killed. After he had murdered his mother, Nero felt guilty about it and tried to justify himself by saying, "It was not I, but those freedmen who slew my mother." As I mentioned earlier, Nero had 2 children with his wife Paphiae Sabina, and after Agrippina's death, he had her erased from all historical records. And when archaeologists discovered her tomb in 1826, they found that it was empty. So they believed that Nero's freedmen took her remains and threw them away so that no one would ever find them. So who was Agrippina? Was she a beautiful woman who slept with her son out of love, or was she ugly and forced her son to sleep with her so she could become empress? Well, we don't know for sure. We only have information on her from Roman historians such as Suetonius, Cassius Dio, and Tacitus, and they were not kind to her. However, it seems that they were biased against her because she was a woman and a powerful one at that. At the time, Roman society looked down upon women who held any kind of power, and Agrippina was definitely a powerful woman. According to Cassius Dio, she influenced her son greatly, and she was the one who urged him to adopt the title of Germanicus. She was also responsible for choosing the governor of Egypt, and she took bribes from influential people to get them appointed to important positions. She was also very rich and owned a lot of property in Rome, and she hosted lavish parties that were attended by the elite of Roman society. So yeah, she was definitely not your average Roman woman. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you to my supporters for making these videos possible. If you want to support my work, you can do so by following the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos, and I'll see you next time.